Hello, everyone. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all joining us from various parts of the world. I hope you're all doing well and keeping safe. I'm Shikhar from the Zensar marketing team, and I welcome you all to the webinar hosted by Zensar and Automation Anywhere on the topic Leveraging Automation to Enhance Insurance Value Chain on Guidewire platform. We thank you all for finding time to attend this webinar. In today's webinar, we will talk about how automation can empower insurance processes built on Guidewire platform for P&C insurance carriers. We will also be showcasing a demo where we use automation in a key insurance process to help reduce cost and enhance productivity. For a seamless audio and visual experience of the demo, I request you all to please use the WebEx application on your desktop and mobile. Web browsers unfortunately do not support media files on the WebEx platform. To address you all in the webinar today, we have insurance experts from Zensar and Automation Anywhere. We have Rajesh Mohandas, Global Head of Automation and Connected Intelligence from Zensar. Joining us from Automation Anywhere, we have Ken Mertzville, Global Leader in the Financial Services and Insurance Industry, and Abasi Ujjainwala, Global Head of Guidewire Practice at Zensar. I request our audience to share their comments and questions by clicking on the Q&A button in the right bottom corner of their screen. Please note, we will be addressing your questions at the end of this webinar after the live demo. If you want to see the presentation and the live demo in a full screen, please click on the full screen button on the right bottom corner of your screen. Without any further delay, I now request Rajesh Mohandas to please begin.
Thank you, Shikhar. Hello, everybody. My name is Rajesh, and I own the Connected Intelligence practice. Automation is the largest part of my entire portfolio, which focuses on bringing in the cognitive features, leveraging the AI and ML into the enterprise, making the processes more seamless to make sure the human in the loop, that's often called, is more confident enough that the machines will do their job good. Well, to start with, let me introduce Zensar Technologies. We are a publicly traded software and services company. We have our offices in 29 different locations globally, servicing near about 500 plus claims and 1,000 associates form our strength. We are one of the oldest to be listed in the stock exchanges, precisely 55 plus years now, and we fall into that category of the first five I'd say companies that were publicly traded, adding to our pedigree. We are a part of the RPG group. That's our parent group. It's a leading conglomerate with 3 billion plus turnover. We partner with Apex. It's a global PE firm, and that comes with like 39 billion worth funds raised so far. As we focus on our webinar today in the PNC space, my dear friends, I would say we come with close to 2 decades of experience across the value chain in the insurance area. We have 500 plus or close to 500 certified professionals in the Guidewire space as well. Last but not the least, I would be proud to say that we are recognized as a major contender in the Guidewire space by Everest, and we find our place in the peak metrics. Shikhar, you may move to the next slide. Well, this slide is self-explanatory. The numbers speak to themselves, but I would like to bring your attention to one of the key facts that less than 3% enterprises today have more than 50 bots in their ecosystem. That gives us a huge opportunity, telling automation is still in its infancy stage and it has a large role to play. And there is a reason, my dear friends, if you say there's a growing gap between the haves and the haves not in the insurance industry. If I have to call out the players, especially in this market, need to believe that the digital technologies will definitely transform their business. But there is a gap between the expectations and the outcomes, and so is with the adoption. One of the big shifts that is taking today, especially the post-COVID scenario, and of course also was the case in the pre-COVID scenario, is towards consumerism. So when I say consumerism, it's all about making sure that the end consumer has been given a customized offer and that offer is very, very individualistic, and that needs to be done in real time. The speed becomes very, very important, and making sure you get the right product at the right time is very, very critical. And also, there is a challenge ensuring it needs to be addressed at a lightning speed, and what else? Then automation and AI comes to the rescue or plays a very vital role. Shikhar, you can move to the next slide. Well, this is something that I would want to spend some time walk you through a journey that's happened in the last decade and so. Automation is now near about a decade-old technology, and I would call this to be still in its infancy stage, moving towards intelligence perhaps. I would say, if many of the analysts today have given different definitions and shared their experience of making this industry grow, and here I'm sharing mine as well. So if I go back to the 2010 to 2015, I would say the first half of this decade is where you see the automation grow from those days where the rule engines caught the fancy, and then came the advancement in the automation. I can basically watch and say the first phase of this automation journey before around 2012, 2015, this first half of the decade, I would say, my friends, were focusing more and more on the claims journey, on the business outcomes. Then we break the processes down process by process to marry the human talent, its creativity, intuition, the judgment, everything combined together and put into a technological and functional capability that would deliver the benefit. This was the era I call automation 1.0, which focuses on pilots, the POCs, the launch of the Center of Excellence, happy paths being developed, and the business cases were being built, gathering more and more traction. So I think this was the era which was the start and journey where the automation maturity started, and still there is a huge opportunity left in the phase one, which is now in the implementation and support cycle, where enterprises have grown to 50 plus bots and the processes are automated. Now, this journey is what I would call it to be more of an orchestrating of digital intelligence, or orchestrating of the processes that form the digitalization world, kind of. Now, my friends, if I call your attention between 2016 and 2019, most of you are going to nod your head and say, this was the time when you started experimenting more with automation. You became more bold, and this is where we posed another challenge in both user community and the enterprise as well. This was the era you turn on to a YouTube channel or a WhatsApp, you see multiple 30-second marketing video bites, and many of them promised a new world orders with machines making most of your work easy, but nobody knew how to scale. The sophistication of the COE models, the decisions around in-house and outsourcing, more so the decision as to who owns automation. Will the IT owning automation or the business owning automation? And multiple such challenges is what this tenure of 3 to 4 years is we all went through. And this is where I would say there were a lot of players in the market, and definitely I would call out Automation Anywhere, which accelerated their innovation, and they, I would say, provided a lot of options to choose from, which gave a very, very different and a new paradigm. And then if you have been lost in choices, there were plenty where the Automation Anywhere provided advanced features. They were quick in releasing version after version, and the product maturity grew. This was the world where by the fag end of 2019, Automation Anywhere launched their cloud platform, that's 808 2019, which brought in a very new feature, as well as bringing in the digital worker story closer to us. So basically, this was the era. Now, coming to 2020, I would say the enterprises moved away from the 1Z, 2Z silos of bot implementations or the POC pilot phase. The appetite is more, the hunger is more. The enterprise is looking for more cognitive components, an integrated approach, and integrated solutions is what they're looking for. And coming back and say, addressing the property and casualty segment that we are talking today about, one of the things you will definitely agree with me is the accuracy of underwriting process and how efficiently the claims are collected makes a very, very, very important and a vital role to play here. and that decides the way we will be heading towards. And in fact, today, I would say the P&C firms would stand in the cusp of a great opportunity, or I would say an incredible opportunity. And this is really leveraging a lot of customer data, applying the layer of cognitive intelligence, the on-demand digital workers that can mimic the human talent powered with the AI tools. And these will try to remove, if not completely, but for sure will try and remove the unpredictability that traditionally marks the underwriting processes and many more in this segment. And of course, this comes with very minimal human intervention, and Automation Anywhere as a product for sure is equipped with the cognitive features and the ability of the digital workers that can be, typically a plug-and-play kind of things that will address our needs. Now, I would now hand over to Ken from Automation Anywhere, who would further pick it up and address the audience with us towards the exciting features this product brings in, the role it plays, primarily making the enterprise more efficient and successful. Ken, over to you.
Thanks, Rajesh. I'm Ken Mertzel, Global Industry Leader for Financial Services and Insurance at Automation Anywhere. And prior to joining the company, I spent my entire career in insurance and financial services. Just before joining, I was at Bank of America for 15 years, half of that as CFO of their insurance group, and then most recently worked for the Chief Accounting Officer implementing the first proof of concept of RPA at the bank. So I can relate to the journey that many of you are going through now. Prior to that, I was at Accenture in their insurance strategy practice, and before that at Progressive Insurance and Finance. So with that, what I want to do today is talk a little bit about the trends in RPA, and in particular, how it's being used by the industry. And before I do that, just for those of you that might not be familiar with our company, Automation Anywhere is really one of the global leaders in RPA. You can see a lot of statistics here. I know when I was in industry, I was always skeptical because, I'd have 5 different vendors come talk to me and they all said they're number one. So I wouldn't take my word for it. Go ahead and look at many of the research studies that are listed here by third parties that talk about the marketplace in RPA. You can see some of the statistics here. So again, we definitely have a strong global presence. We have over 2.1 million bots deployed globally. And I think what's been a testament to the value that RPA adds is just the fact that, not only the industry, but we've grown, more than doubled since I've joined in the past year or so. So with that, let me talk specifically about what RPA is on the next slide. And again, for those of you that are just getting familiar with RPA, I think part of the challenge is the industry does itself a disservice calling it robotic. So people often think of actual robots, but really it's simply software that sits on top of existing systems and does, typically very manual, repetitive, rules-based activities exactly the way they would be performed by an employee. So I can think of it as an Excel macro on steroids. Think about the example where you might be an invoice processor and each day you use your employee ID to log into the system, download some information, create a report, upload that back into the system, and send it to your supervisor. Basically, the RPA bot would do exactly the same thing. It typically has an employee ID number. It can access the system, do all that work with the data, upload it back into systems, and send emails. So I think the main difference versus traditional automation is, literally you can automate a process in a matter of 8 to 12 weeks, as opposed to typically, months for traditional automation. It's very low cost and really integrates seamlessly with basically any application that you would interact with as a human worker. And you can see here on the right that really RPA is a mature technology. Over 80% of insurers now are in some form of implementation or POC, whereas AI technology is a little bit less mature. Next, what I want to do is just tell you a little bit about where we see the technology going. And often Automation Anywhere, we really refer to a digital workforce as opposed to RPA standalone, because we believe you really need a combination of capabilities in terms of truly enabling your employee base. And so the first capability that's built on our platform is, of course, RPA, what we just talked about. And that tends to come in two forms, either unattended automation where you kick off a bot and it runs in the background, or increasingly we're seeing a lot more interest in attended automation, particularly, for example, in contact centers, where in real time you can access all the information about a customer across various databases and also interact with other members of your team, whether it's an underwriter or managers, again, in real time. So we're beginning to see both those types of RPA forms built within our platform. In addition, another capability in our platform are cognitive capabilities, and specifically the product we call IQBot, which really intelligently takes unstructured data from PDFs or paper-based forms, and as opposed to traditional OCR, it has a much higher throughput rate because it's using sophisticated technologies in the background, such as machine learning and computer vision, to really increase the throughput to extract that data, which then you can use to run through RPA. And then third, we think it's another critical component of digital workforce to have smart analytics. So built into our platform, for example, is Bot Insight, and that includes not only operational insights on how your bots are performing, but equally importantly, given all the data that's running through the platform, you can actually develop on-the-fly dashboards to see how your business is performing. So all that together is what we call the digital workforce, and we've actually built digital workers that are a combination of bots that can actually perform tasks typically performed by human employees to really, again, augment their capabilities. And ultimately in our bot store, you can search those by process or role and skill. So with that, next, what I wanted to talk about is, why is it that insurers are using RPA today? And not surprisingly, first and foremost, often they initially look at RPA in terms of driving operational efficiencies. So how can they lower costs and drive operational excellence? But increasingly, as companies look at and use RPA, they realize there are a whole host of other benefits that come with using the platform. So first and foremost is really improving customer experience. To the extent you can use the technology to increase the speed and accuracy of interactions with your customers, that's really going to provide a much more positive experience. In addition, insurance is all about taking the appropriate risks, and so leveraging RPA to really enhance underwriting, pricing, and fraud detection by more effective utilization of data across all your internal and external systems is another strong use. In addition, companies are increasingly using RPA to really help foster their innovation efforts. So initially might start with RPA and then expand to additional cognitive intelligence and AI capabilities, in addition to using RPA on an interim basis to help replace their legacy platforms by migrating data from one platform to another. And then last, it's interesting, it might be counterintuitive that RPA is really using to empower human capital. I think historically, companies were worried that RPA was being used to replace people, but we're really finding it more common that RPA is being used as a digital assistant to help the workforce be much more productive and focus on value-added activities as opposed to, again, a lot of those manual data-intensive tasks. And then last, in terms of where RPA is being used by insurers, as you can see here, it's really being used across the entire value chain in insurance. And I think the reason for that is many of the challenges that most of you are all familiar with that are facing the industry. Again, very manual and paper-intensive processes, a lot of proprietary legacy applications that don't talk to each other, increasing competition from online-only, insurtech companies. And then the fact that you have to deal with a whole variety of different regulations, which vary from state to state or country to country. And as a result, we're seeing usage, as I mentioned, everywhere in the life cycle. I'd say currently we see probably the most interest, particularly in claims and equally in customer service and policy admin. Increasingly, we're seeing more and more interest in underwriting, particularly in the commercial space. And then it really applies to all of the corporate functions, but often it's the finance function that brings RPA into an organization. So with that, I wanted to hand it over to Vasi, and what he's going to talk about is in particular how RPA can be used to complement core processing systems and Guidewire in particular. Vasi.
Thank you, Ken. This is Abasi Jainwala. I've been in the software industry for more than 27 years, out of which 15 years in insurance, out of which 10 years with Guidewire itself, right? So you heard from Ken and Rajesh, overall perspective of RPA and automation across horizontals as well as particularly in insurance industry, how it helps. I would like to go and drill down further into specific products, right? And across the value chain of Guidewire suites and various offerings Guidewire provides, how it can complement for Guidewire customers to use and leverage RPA. Now, if you guys, most of you may remember, Guidewire launched Claim Center almost 15 years ago. That was, breath of fresh air coming from insurance industry at that time. Was it either paper or green screens, right? And then Guidewire brought in this product which changed the way things happen, and naturally, rest is the history now. It's a dominant player in the market today. Now, no doubt, Guidewire platform brings in amazing amount of automation, but by the very nature of insurance, a lot of processes still have at various end of the mile, right? Right from the beginning all the way to tail end. There are various places where still automation can happen, and tools like Automation Anywhere can complement it. So what are those examples, right? So let's begin with Policy Center within its two major functions around underwriting and policy service. We all know as an input channel, we have various distribution channels which bring in data, and that has to be then used either by CSRs or agents to create submissions, quotes, quote apps, etc., and provide it to customers so that they can decide and then ultimately issue the policy. A lot of this journey, even today, is going through your submission app, either on the Policy Center native UI or even on the portal UI, where somebody has to manually enter it as well as collect and aggregate various input channels to bring in that data and put it on the Guidewire platform. That is one area where Automation Anywhere and RPA platform does a fabulous job, where you can use chatbot and a synchronized bot in an orchestrated fashion, bringing cognitive capabilities, NLP capabilities to aggregate the data, input it into Guidewire system through normal flows of UI, but done by bots, and create the apps, which can then be sent it out or convert it into policies as needed. Similarly, within the policy service journey also, customers very often call to make changes to their mailing address or their email address or phone numbers. Those are very simple, straightforward transactions which are prime candidates for bots to take over and do it, right? You can use humans to do much higher value functions in that regards. So those are some of the cases from Policy Center perspective. Each of these bullets which I have within Q&A session, I would love to go in and dig in further also if needed. But each of them have those unique cases, as you can imagine. Similarly, for claims also, and then claims, I'll be also demonstrating you a proper demo to show how a bot can use. So we'll talk about it a little bit more. But moving on to Billing Center, one classic example I can pick is bulk payment, right? Bulk payments, as we know, it has most of the carriers have done some integration-based ways of doing it, where batch file comes in. But even then, those carriers who have done integration as well as those who have not, they still come to bulk payment UI screens where a lot of the data is human entry, which can again becomes a prime candidate where bot can replace and orchestrate all the way to getting the payments collected, right? And data management is an interesting one, because it's very so. If I share a journey with you, most of the time when data management comes, data migration comes along with it, right? And data migration, let's talk about policy conversions, right? Classic way of doing policy conversion has always been let's go via back route, which is let's go into the legacy database systems, collect the data by virtue of like ETL processes, extract, transform, load, curate that data, bring it into the format which Guidewire Accelerator can consume, and then run it in the batch mode so you can have your conversion done, either at conversion at renewal or conversion with history. But last couple of years, some of the carriers, and it's interesting actually, for my last few years at Guidewire, I was managing other continents beyond Northern America, where some of the EMEA carriers brought in this thought that why can't we use RPA? Why for a lot of policies, instead of going through this back channel and creating this whole program, which is multi-million dollar, many times over $1 million worth of project, why can't we just use RPA and convert it? Because many times whenever they do the cost value comparison, they anyway end up hiring humans to do this job for a transitional period, and then they have to manage the transition of humans, whereas bots become prime candidate for doing so. So that's one classic example I'm pretty sure you would have also come across and would have mulled over multiple options in your hand, and RPA can surely be one of the options which many carriers have started using it. Next slide, please. So before going into some of the examples, I'll take from claims management as an example, because this is the demo we'll also present it to you. First notice of loss and intake is another journey where you receive a lot of FNOLs by various channels, again, many times with email, phone calls, through the portal apps, and then that data has to be put into Claim Center. How bot can help you out. That is the journey we'll go about. But before I go and describe the workflow, I would like to first explain you what are the key features of this particular bot demo which we are going to demonstrate. As you can imagine, and as Ken and Rajesh pointed out, these bots are software bots. So it's not graphics where there is an actual bot doing things. You have to imagine certain things when the demo flows. So I would like to point out some key features, right? So this bot encapsulates integrated claims management aspect of document and communication management. It leverages AI, ML, and natural language processing to read ACORD form from a PDF. It also even supports multiple versions of ACORD, so you don't have to worry about humans interpreting different versions and then handing it over to bots. So bots are coordinated accordingly. There is a cognitive capability there. Similarly, it captures effective data as needed, rather than human going through the entire form and trying to figure out, which takes longer time to collect the data. Bot is trained so that it knows what specific data elements it has to pick up to create the FNOL. It also manages business rules. It leverages Guidewire business rules which are already configured, as well as some which can be complemented. It can also, this particular bot we have, it also has few business rules to complement the Guidewire rules which you have configured. Similarly, many times what we have seen with carriers when we have implemented bots is that they have a challenge in terms of, okay, you have the bot, it is running, but we are not able to understand how much of the usage and what kind of efficiency and utilization we have achieved out of those bots. So Automation Anywhere platform excels there in terms of providing the analytics capability for bot itself to tell you how much of your bot is getting used versus, so you can do a cost value analysis on top of it. This particular bot, which will demonstrate you, also manages error handling, where if in the process, if say for example, if the ACORD form was not filled properly and it was missing some mandatory data, it will still create the claim in the draft mode, but then encapsulate all the details, create an email and send it back to the sender saying that these are the things which are missing, so that a human can either add it or they can send a newer version and then it can finish the claims journey. So those are some key features. Now, moving on to next slide, workflow, as I'm sure most of you who are from the P&C industry will relate to this workflow. It's pretty straightforward. Here, for demonstration purpose, what we have done is we have chosen one input channel, which is an email. So bot will go to the email inbox, pick the proper emails which are relevant to it from the specific folder, pick the attachments such as ACORD PDFs, read the PDF, and start the FNOL process through the Claim Center's FNOL wizard, right, or claims intake wizard. Within that, it will also leverage Guidewire rules you have configured in your system. Along with that, some of the integrations you may have with your policy system for policy search, etc. And keep on going step by step with each and every screen, all the way where claim can be created, claim number is generated, and pick that and send it out back to the sender saying claim has been created, here is the number, and here are the details, so that they can always reference back when they want to move ahead. Along with that, it also creates activity, it naturally assigns and creates activities, again leveraging the way you have configured your claim center, so that it complements in its true nature. Right? Now, one part which I want to make sure and which Shikhar had mentioned in the beginning of the call, if you have joined via browser, I would suggest you can take a second and join via the desktop application of WebEx. By that, you will be able to see this demo much more properly. And towards the end of the demo, we will also explain you further more details of what all is happening, and then what are the best practices, right, to be followed while implementing such kind of bots. Shikhar, if you don't mind, we can move on. Maybe give them a half a minute pause. I surely encourage you to have more question and answers session, because goal was not to tell you everything, but rather give you some thought-provoking ideas. So you ask us and we can give you answers. One last point before the bot starts. For the sake of time, we have tried to keep the demo small and succinct so that it will keep you engaged. But if you are interested in understanding the whole orchestration of multiple bots working together and how this whole demo comes together, we are more than happy to show you the live demo as and when time permits and your interest, kind of interest you have in it. Shikhar?
This demo illustrates how a bot processes the insurance claim of a customer. First, the RPA-enabled bot opens the Outlook application to download the FNOL, attached as a PDF to an email sent by the customer. The bot fills in the username and password fields to sign in to Outlook. The bot scrolls through the emails in the claims folder and opens the first unread email. If the bot doesn't find any unread email with an FNOL PDF attached in the claims folder, the bot sends an automated email stating that the required email is not in the claims folder. When the required email is found, the bot downloads the attached PDF and saves it to a specific folder. The bot extracts the information needed from the PDF for Guidewire to file a claim. This information might be a policy number, a name, etc. The bot launches the Guidewire Claim Center application and fills in the username and password fields to log in to the application. The bot begins filing the claim by creating a new claim for the customer. In step 1 of the claim filing process, the bot fills in the policy number, first name, last name, and date of loss. This data was extracted from the PDF attached to the downloaded email. Once the details have been filled in, the bot clicks on the search button to see if there is a corresponding policy. If the policy number is wrong and the bot does not find the policy, the bot will respond with an email stating that the policy number is wrong. Please check the policy number. If the bot does find the policy, it moves forward to step 2 by clicking on the Next button. In step 2, the bot starts filling in basic information like name, relationship to the insured, etc., and confirms the details of the vehicle involved. The bot selects the checkbox only if the vehicle involved matches the one in the PDF. Next, the bot begins to fill in claim information, such as address, description, and loss cause, then clicks on Edit Vehicle to add the vehicle details. The bot fills in the vehicle damage description and the details of the driver and details of any injuries to occupants if there are any. The bot fills in the damaged vehicle information and any injury details of the driver. The bot now fills in details of any witnesses who were at the scene by adding a new person and then adding specifics such as first name, last name, contact number, etc. The bot assigns the claims to the claims adjuster and navigates to the next screen. The bot then saves the claim details. The 5-step process of creating a claim is complete. and a new claim number is generated.
So before we move on to next aspect of it, I wanted to analyze some of the key elements of this demo, right? So one part is this bot has many avatars or many versions, which is not by virtue of implementing it like a programming, but training the bot, right? So for example, in one avatar of the bot is where when policy number is not found, it still creates an unverified claim and moves on, right? So that's one version which we created for a customer of ours. Another aspect is where another avatar takes this forward. Even after creating claim, it goes back to the email, looks at for other attachments that that email may have, and uploads the documents also. So that claim documents, such as some images might have been submitted, or some relevant witness testimony or anything might have been there. It takes it and uploads it to the document management system integrated via Claim Center. So there are many. What I wanted to impress upon is this version which we showed you was the smallest version which can fit in the succinct timeline for the webinar. But there are many other avatars of the same bot which are trained and can be leveraged as needed. And then another version which we also created was where instead of email, multiple input channels, right? So in one case, for example, they were using ImageWrite to take the in-text, and then we pick up the files from ImageWrite's repository, and then bot moves on to create the FNOL. So just wanted to give that flavor and understanding. There are multiple versions of this. Going to the best practices, implementation best practices. First, I wanted to explain you why we think we can be one of the Automation Anywhere chosen SI to implement this kind of bots for Guidewire platform. So I wanted to just give you a perspective of our pedigree from Guidewire implementation perspective, right? So within Zensar, as insurance practice and Guidewire practice, we have implemented more than 40 claim center, more than 60 claim center projects, more than 40 policy center projects, similarly more than 35 billing center, likewise digital data hub, and also we were one of the SIs working hand in hand with Guidewire to take their customers live on Guidewire Cloud, as well as non-Guidewire clouds where they chose to go with their own, right? So we have covered plethora of those implementations with our 450 plus people within us, as well as our other practices which join hand to complete the ecosystem aspect, right? So I'll hand it over to Rajesh so he can give you how the best practices of implementation works out. Please, Rajesh, go ahead. Rajesh, you are muted still.
Yeah, I was on mute. Thanks, Abasi. Okay, so if you look at the screen, my dear friends, you'd see there is a method to madness, right? It's not just like go in, walk to people and say, okay, here's my automation product. I can install your machine and start running. So it doesn't work that way. Though it is shown like that, and you have seen that in many videos, that's how it as easy as it looks like. But there is a method that we follow. The processes that we identify first needs to go through a rigor to understand if they are feasible enough to fall into the category of being automated. This debate continues, my dear friends. If you have experience in your scenarios as well, people have a philosophy that the processes needs to be lean, efficient, with near zero variance, and then automate. Whereas there's another school of thought that says, let's go ahead and automate, and as now the process matures, the automation journey matures. This is a classic chicken and egg story which continues, but there are different schools of thoughts, and there's nothing wrong in each of them. So looking at the way we operate, we have a defined 5-step process with 5 different tool gates. To start with, we engage our clientele in identifying the processes, making sure the thorough assessment is done, the due diligence happens, the stakeholder alignment with the sign-up of business cases is something that we look upfront when we are developing an automation strategy and a roadmap for that given process. The roadmap is often driven on the benefits and not on the features. It is not that we go ahead and implement a feature A, B, C, D, E is the roadmap. The roadmap usually is on a benefit. So benefit A is what you get. A benefit B, a benefit could be in the form of cost optimization, a benefit in the form of growth trajectory, a benefit could be in the form of risk mitigation or a risk management. Finally, we can talk about the customer experience altogether. How would you to manage? And that's how the roadmap forms the first phase, the first toll gate. As we get to the second toll gate, we would definitely pick up a small pilot POC to verify, validate, and see how things are shaped up. And once we have enough confidence, we work with the process leaders, we work with the organization in deriving a pipeline and prioritize a set of processes that go through this pipeline to be botified. As we get into the toll gate and then move to the phase 3 or phase C, what you see here on the screen, here is where a center of excellence gets built. Now, here's where we define a center of excellence across various layers of the architecture, across various pillars of the technology, across the processes that have been defined. Usually, the finance processes are the ones that get fancied, and they are playing a very vital role, giving a leading support into the automation journey. But otherwise, a center of excellence gets defined, the PMO model is set up to launch and operate. And further, as we move to the next toll gate, here is where we talk about scale. Moving from a 1Z, 2Z pilot silo, the happy, smiley milestones, what you call it, has been accomplished with the first 3 phases. We move into the phase where actual scale happens. Here is where the factory models play a role. Here is where the bot factories flow in, and here's where the entire botification of processes happen in a factory model. And finally, the last phase comes where we would be managing the automation projects to realize the benefit. That's where you see the outcome. And this is the story right from the expectation setting on the phase 1 all the way to outcome that you would see. There is a sometimes you phase between the expectations and the outcome, but with the advancements that is happening and the kind of way we are operating and the maturity we have built, the gap is near zero between the expectations and outcomes. And many a times we have signed up an outcome-based model where we sign up upfront telling this is the benefit that you would get, and maybe a variance of 3 to 5% is seen on benefit realization. So far, I can vouch for and put right in blood and say this is the kind of accuracy we have built, and that's the implementation towards the acceleration of automation that we have. I pause here and back to you, Shikhar, so you can pick it up from there.
Thank you, Rajesh, Ken, and Basi for the great insights on the role automation can play in the insurance and Guidewire world, and the very interesting demo of claims automation. We have received multiple questions from our attendees, and I will now start with the Q&A session. I again request all the attendees to kindly send your questions and comments in the Q&A section on the right bottom corner of your screen. I'll start with the first question. My first question is to Ken. Ken, our audience wants to know, where does the data for cognitive AI capabilities come from? Does it come from a third party like LexisNexis?
Sure. I mean, there's no one source for data. I think the good news for insurance companies, there's no shortage of data. So, frankly, even if you leverage a lot of your internal data, that's going to be a great start. And in addition, companies do typically augment the data with data from third-party sources. For the IQBot capabilities I talked about specifically in terms of intelligent data extraction, that comes purely from your own information. So basically, the more documents you run through, the more the bot basically learns from that and is able to increase the accuracy rate in terms of extracting the data from documents. So again, overall for cognitive, internal and external sources, for IQBot, it basically just requires running, your own documents through, and it basically learns via machine learning.
I'll just add one point there. So I'll give you an example. When we were implementing one bot for a commercial line carrier, That was also actually Accord-based bot, where about 5 versions of Accord forms had to be supported. So we trained the bot for about 3 to 4 days by providing various versions in different kind of orders and all kinds of combinations you can imagine. And after that, it was on its own, right? After that, on the field, it could pick up and recognize which version is which and how those fields are mapped. Because there are some title changes, some placement changes in Accord forms, as you may have also seen. But bot leveraging cognitive capabilities could figure out and do the job on that. That's an example of training the bot with existing documents without external integration.
Thank you, Ken and Abbasi. My next question is to you, Abbasi. And the question is that the automation and across the Guidewire platform, which we spoke about, how is it applicable and how is it different for different line of businesses?
That's a very, very interesting question, actually. So, thing is this, right? As I was telling you, this bot had many avatars, right, or many versions, as you can say. So, at a base level, we created, for example, for this claims intake bot, we created one version just by picking one line of business we were comfortable with. And then we started training the bot for different lines of business. So currently today, as we stand, our claims bot is available for personal lines, couple of personal line of LOBs and couple of commercial line of LOBs. So in total, I think we have 4 LOBs already covered, right? So where I'm going from here is, as far as LOB specific things are there, some of the LOBs are very specific. Now, if you take an underwriting journey, for example, some of the LOBs are so unique that it is better to start off with separate bots for each of those LOBs. Whereas certain aspects and certain functionalities are common, where you can take same bot and create just an avatar of it, right? Or retrain the bot for that other LOB. So classic example, as I said, claim is where we could just create versions of the same bot. Whereas for underwriting, if I am doing a quote app for auto policy versus I'm doing a quote app for, say, commercial property, quite different, right? As you know, within Guidewire world, for commercial property, I do also get to leverage importing an Excel sheet for, say, all 50 or 100 or 500 locations of my building, right? Or locations I can import. And the journey of the quote is quite different compared to an auto policy. In that case, I would start with 2 separate bots, one for auto line and one for commercial line. If that explains your answer.
Thank you, Abbasi. The next question is for Abbasi as well. Like what was showed for claims? Is there a use case for a product lifecycle management or any part of product innovation or ideation?
Actually, I'm really glad you guys asked that question. And so it's interesting. So first of all, let me caveat this, right? We have not yet implemented a live bot. We were in discussion with one of the carriers where they engaged with us at an ideation process. They were coming up with a very innovative new product to be launched on Guidewire platform in the insurance market. And it was considered to be a disruptive kind of product, right? What we realized was that they could absolutely use bot all the way from their discussions when discussion started with actuaries. So as you can imagine, actuaries goes with huge Excels. That's what they love. That's what their life is. But then that has to be translated into Guidewire rating. So that's one straightaway area where we told them that a lot of this we cannot do the automation. Instead of doing an integration by mapping everything else out, we can perhaps use bot who can read your Excel, who understands and can be trained on Guidewire rating, and we can incorporate that, right? So that's one classic example. Similarly, on product models also, as you are doing the variation, you can start leveraging bot to do a lot of your comparative analysis, right? You can still use automated comparators, rate comparators, but the whole orchestration where you need multiple humans, you could rather do orchestration by virtue of bots. So you can launch the process, collect the results. Bot can even analyze the results and give you only the core differences which you need to focus on and make the decisions on. So yes, answer is yes.
Thank you, Abbasi. My next question is to Rajesh and Ken both. Rajesh and Ken, is RPA execution time faster than regular automation?
Shikhar, this is a very, very nice question. It's asking like, is sugar sweeter or the sugar cubes more sweet? I don't know who asked this question, but to answer, RPA and automation are no difference. RPA is robotic process automation, where the bots have been built. Yes, one definite answer for this, I would say, answering if the sugar is sweeter or the sugar cube, it depends on the way you would want to approach. One thing, if I can quote from my practical experience, I would say we designed a master-slave architecture of bots, where we had one master bot which had more cognitive faculties built in, and the master bot played the role of a supervisor who would supervise multiple other bots. So it was a 17 bot package which ran 24/7, out of which one bot was a master bot who was able to schedule and distribute the workload towards various bots, and all the bots were farmed. So while that was one of my experiences as a master and slave, so my dear friend, I don't know who asked this question, but that's a very classic one. I didn't understand when you said regular automation. Was it something else like macros or?
Actually, yeah, Rajesh, that other aspect I can take care of, but I would like to let you finish, but I can take care of that other aspect.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, I would say automation is automation, my friend. So it depends on the way you design and architect it, that adds the efficiency of it. But nonetheless, that's what it is. I'll see if you have something on this.
Yeah. Ken, do you have some perspective? There was other nuance of the question I can answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are two ways to answer this. So one in terms of execution is in terms of development. So I think there's dramatic difference in terms of using RPA versus traditional automation. Again, like when I was at the bank or in insurance, I mean, typically a typical automation project using traditional automation would take months, if not a full year. I mean, RPA, the typical process automation project is typically 8 to 12 weeks. And of that time, it's probably only a matter of days in terms of coding the RPA bot. It's more the time in terms of understanding the process and the flow. So again, dramatic difference in terms of RPA being developed. And then secondly, from an actual runtime, if you will, to the extent you're going there, they're really the only constraint on RPA in terms of runtime is actually the underlying systems itself. So basically, the RPA bots can run as fast as any underlying system does. That's usually the only constraint. The RPA bots itself don't slow down the process. It's again only limited by the systems that's running on, whether it's Guidewire or other processing systems. Anything else about it?
So I think actually can you kind of covers the other aspect of the question. So if the person had in mind automation thinking example of integration based automation versus RPA, then I'll take this example which I saw play out in real life, right? So data migration for policy conversion, right, is as I was telling you earlier also, is a classic place where automation is generally achieved by integrations and a data migration accelerator, combination of it. So to Ken's point, if you look at that whole project, to implement that project is generally few months. At bare minimum, it will be at least say 3 to 4 months, even for a simpler situation, right? And there are a lot of challenges because the data quality of legacy and how you can extract it. So the ETL is very complicated. So think of it from that perspective. Now, when you do the actual execution, in a safe manner, I've seen that on a nightly run, you can without doing huge briefing of your systems, etc., you can achieve perhaps 5 to 10,000 policies per night, right? At the window which you get to run them, for example, during conversion process. Now let's compare and contrast with bot. So let's say you chose bot as a journey, and in that case, first of all, your implementation cycle will be much smaller because you are going to train the bot, going to your legacy systems screens by screen. You're not doing the ETL aspect. So that whole multiple months of project is not needed. And a bot can be trained in weeks time and starting inputting into the Guidewire, right? So you can have a renewal transaction or conversion with history also, depending on what your choices are, and bot can run. So let's just take renewal as an example. Now, one bot with one runner yeah, naturally you will achieve perhaps maybe compared to human might have taken 10-15 minutes per policy, bot might take about 5-7 minutes, right? It will be still faster than human. But you have to see how bot scales. So with Automation Anywhere's platform, one bot can have multiple runners, and you're not beefing your policy system so much, right? You are still using your production version, which is already at a scale. You're scaling only multiple runners. So if you use 10, you are reaching almost the numbers which you could have done it via integration, or maybe at 20 runners you will achieve the numbers you are getting at, without actually tuning your migration and integration implementation, which is a very tricky tuning, as some of you who have done that work can relate to me on that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Abasi, Rajesh, and Ken for answering that question. My next question is, the bot looks like a new integration point, but how can it help in the testing features? How fast does it learn? And how fast changes are made in the bot to use the new features? Abasi, would you like to answer this question?
I would love, but Ken, I think you may be the better one. Rajesh can, but surely.
Sure. I'll take this. In fact, Shikhar, I would say the speed at which a bot can be changed purely depends on the agility of the process. So we have seen the entire L3 cycle, the change management cycle, go as less as 1 week and has extended as high as 3 to 4 weeks as well. Now, it depends on the way the change is coming. It could be a product-related change. It could be a process-related change. It could be a change driven to an external application on which the bot is running. So there are various tenets on which the change comes in. So given various tenets, typically in an enterprise, I would want to answer this question in two ways. So if you are a bot developer, you are a bot user, you are a person who is owning the process and you are in control to own the process quickly, make the changes, then yes, it is a split second. Having said that, if it is an enterprise, there is a process that is put in place. Typically in larger enterprises, they have a change management cycle and all the changes go through the CAB, which is your change management board. The board approves a change and then the change cycle triggers, the change implementation happens, the change goes through the test phase, and after the testing is done, then comes to the a production environment. So there's a cycle that follows. So that's a typical change cycle. So technically answering a change would be done very, very fast, but because there's a cycle in place, there's a process in place, that the entire change management that has to go through anywhere between a week to 3 weeks is what we can see as a cycle. And sometimes it may extend depending on the complexity of the change.
Thank you.
Do you want to ask something?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add on that. I think you covered it.
Okay, Shikhar, yeah.
Thank you. Where we still have many questions left, I think we are down to our last question based on the time we have. My next question is to Ken. RPA has big potential for internal processes, but with regards to B2B interactions, how successful has it been in your experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we talked a lot about internal examples, but actually it's very well made for B2B interactions, and particularly because I mentioned typically where RPA is deployed is, again, across systems. So that's whether it's across internal systems, but equally across external systems. So if you think about in the claims space, just by way of example, think about interactions between, claims estimation, like auto repair network, for example, or interactions with the departments of motor vehicle in terms of getting information. So I'd say it's equally adept at interactions with external organizations because, again, your systems aren't typically integrated, and so that creates a great opportunity for you. And again, the bots can be used to extract information not only from systems but also from external websites, etc.
Thank you, Ken. Since we have a minute, I'll ask my last question, which is to Abasi. How are we reading a handwritten accord form? Can you please answer that?
Yeah. So right now, the one which I showed you was reading PDF. Similarly, with OCR technology integrated with bot, we have actually a library which we'll leverage for that. We can train the bot to do handwritten also. Now, challenges in handwritten are based on cursive, non-cursive writing also. So there are some nuances which is not as matured as you can imagine, but there are some good technology partners which we have worked with who have that capability to take various forms of handwriting and give us a succinct way which bot can leverage. So it's, in short, it is leveraging multiple technologies and then applying NLP, which comes along with Automation Anywhere, to achieve that.
Another related question, Abasi, is that the assign adjuster is automated in Guidewire itself. Do we still need RP to do that process?
No, thank you for bringing this up, right? So please keep in mind, wherever you have configured Guidewire system as well as whatever out-of-the-box aspects are there, that there is no point using RPA. So like in this claims intake bot where you saw, after a claim is created, classification, segmentation, assignment, everything will happen. So we don't have to use bot for. However, in the email attachment, if the PDF, there are some other attachments, pictures, etc. Those can be uploaded by bot. That's one example. Second is, there may be some instructions in email, right? So in one of the versions where there were instructions to create, to do some work after FNOL is done. So what bot was doing is taking those and creating activities for the adjuster and handler to work on it, right? So we can always complement. The idea is to complement the platform's capability rather than recreating it. There's no point reinventing the wheel, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Abasi, for answering that question. Since we are out of time, but we yet have many questions unanswered, to all the unanswered questions, we will be responding via email. You can also see the contact details of our speakers on the screen. And if you have any questions or queries, please feel free to reach out to them. We have now come to the end of this webinar. As I mentioned, you can reach out to our speakers on the email IDs shared on the screen. We will also be writing to all our attendees with the recording of this webinar, which you can further share with your other team members. I wholeheartedly thank all our attendees for being a patient yet a very well-engaged audience. Big thanks to our speakers Rajesh, Ken and Abasi for their time and effort in giving us the insights on today's topic. I also thank Automation Anywhere for their collaboration with us for this webinar. It was a pleasure to have you all with us. Have a good day and stay safe. Best wishes from Team Zensar.